So last year, Cincinnati had the opportunity to prove that they could play with the big boys. They went against Alabama and got smacked in the playoffs. But in fairness, that's happened to a lot of teams. That's happened to a lot of teams that aren't group of five schools. So I think that Cincinnati last year showed a lot of character, a lot of heart, and showed that they deserve to be in the college football playoff. However, this year's version of the Cincinnati Bearcats, as they prepare for a game in Fayetteville against the Arkansas Razorbacks, they're not exactly the same team. They're ranked, and so is Arkansas. Arkansas is ranked, so we got another ranked matchup here. But Cincinnati had so much turnover. I mean, you're losing both your starting corners, you're losing your cornerback, you're losing your leading wide receiver, and you have another couple pieces on defense too that were instrumental.
Losing your top edge rusher.
Yeah, that were instrumental in your run to the playoffs. Meanwhile, Arkansas is a team that's on the rise. Last year, they showed a lot. They showed that Pittman is getting this team turned around in the right direction, and it took me a while to come along. One of our more famous videos on the channel is me bemoaning the Longhorns for getting their ass kicked by the Arkansas Razorbacks. But that was very early on in the season. I quickly learned, oh yeah, Arkansas is actually for real. In fact, they were in a close game with Georgia at one point during the year, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Texas A&M?
They beat Texas A&M. They beat Texas A&M last year.
Yeah, so they were surprising everyone. I think they even rose to being a top 10 school in the polls at one point. And then they came back down to earth as this tail end of the season happened. But if you're a Arkansas Razorbacks fan, you are impressed with what Sam Pittman's been able to do. And going into this third year, you're extremely excited. I don't want to sleep on Cincinnati. I think that they've built a good culture there. I just think the problem is when you lose so much talent, the next year you're always going to have some sort of drop off. I mean, even a big school like Clemson, they lose Trevor Lawrence and they lose ETN and they lose all those guys. And last year was a disappointment. So when I look at a small school like Cincinnati, it's hard for me to believe that they're the same team where I could just expect them to come and compete against a ascending Razorbacks team. But what say you, Kyle?
I think that Arkansas is a very good football team. Now, Arkansas's season will be determined in part by how they do one against the Texas A&Ms and Bamas, not where they are trying to win, but how close of a measuring stick game is that. I think they play at Alabama this year, which will make it a bit difficult for them. But the other part is how they do against Ole Miss and Mississippi State, because Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State will file in 3 to 5 in the SEC West in some order. So those games will be big for Arkansas in terms of figuring out what the state of the program is.
There's some that would ask why even schedule this game against Cincinnati, knowing that you have to play the SEC schedule as is. I mean, credit to them for wanting to take on one of the more powerful group of 5 schools, or soon to be Big 12 schools in Cincinnati. But even still, this is not exactly a ideal spot. Obviously, if you're a SEC team that has to go against the schedule that they do, normally this is where you schedule the Sisters of the Blind, right?
Yeah, and they'll do that later on in the schedule. I think I'm looking at their schedule now. They got a Missouri State coming up later in the year. They play Liberty, so they will get to those eventually. I think this is one where...
Don't count out Bobby Petrino.
Bobby Petrino and Hugh Freeze also are coming to town against Arkansas. But Arkansas is going to be a fun team. And for Cincinnati, like you said, it's a huge turnover of the team. Now, that's not as big of a death sentence as maybe it was back when, say UCF was making a deep run, or Western Michigan with PJ Fleck, because transfer portal makes it easier for players to come into Cincinnati. They've now established themselves as that 3rd or 4th tier of college football team where they're going to consistently win 8 games, even when they play a Big 12 schedule, which you could say playing Arkansas to start the year is a Big 12 type of schedule. Obviously they'll play the AAC, but they're, like you said, they're about to move to the Big 12. But Cincinnati did keep one big piece, and it's like the culture you were talking about. They kept the ringleader of the circus and future Nebraska head coach Luke Fickell for at least one more season. So I think having Fickell back will help. He's clearly one of the better coaches in college football and has chosen to stay at Cincinnati. I think in part because last year was such a weird year in college football where everyone was getting those giant contracts. So Fickell kind of fell to the background because his team was still playing into January, but he's still at Cincinnati. He's going to transition the program into the Big 12, or maybe he leaves after this year. Who knows? But Cincinnati's got a solid team. Arkansas, what Arkansas brings to the table is what the internet and myself like to call whomping. Arkansas is going to whomp you. Arkansas is built extra large. They have a defensive tackle that is 330 pounds. Their quarterback, KJ Jefferson, is 240 pounds at the quarterback position. Their wide receivers are all like 6'5" and 6'6" guys like Treylon Burks. So Arkansas will whomp you. They will whomp you for 4 quarters. They might win, they might lose, but they're definitely going to whomp. And that's what we can expect from this Arkansas team that, at the very least, is relatively similar to the team that won 7 games last year.
I think that's part of the problem too in the assessment of this game. The last time we saw Cincinnati, them going against Alabama, they did get whomped. They got whomped by the Crimson Tide. The rushing attack, which wasn't a great running game for Alabama, was still able to take it to town on Cincinnati. And Arkansas last year was a top 7 rushing attack in college football. That also includes Jefferson, their quarterback. And again, going back to the Longhorn game last year, one of my big takeaways was learning just how physical that team is. Like you said, they whomping, punch you in the mouth, whatever you want to call it.
Whomp.
They we'll stick with whomping then. We'll stick with whomping. I think they did just have a level of physicality that this very young, fairly new Cincinnati unit won't be prepared for early in the season, because I think part of the problem when you do have so much turnover, and this is going to be where Luke Fickell, who is a good coach, who is probably a great coach, honestly, is going to have to do some of his best developing, and development takes time, and development takes games played. So I just don't think a week 1 game is an ideal spot for this Cincinnati Bearcats team. And that's why I'm going to say that the Arkansas Razorbacks are going to get this win, and it's going to be a big win for them too. Probably push them a couple spots up in the rankings.
I am with you on the Arkansas victory. I will take the Wampin boys. They, according to what I see, they're 6.5 point favorites for this game, which I think is, for gambling's sake, stay away from that one, because I think this is a game where Cincinnati will probably backdoor cover, or Arkansas will like hold on at the very end, or like Cincinnati's going to be down 4 with 2 minutes to go, and what I like to call Kirk Cousins purgatory. They may find themselves in Kirk Cousins purgatory for the end of this game. So stay away or bet Cincinnati if you feel so inclined. But I'm with you. I will take the Wampin boys of Arkansas to win, and Arkansas might end up scoring 40 points in this game. That doesn't mean Cincinnati isn't also going to score in the 30s, but big scoring game for the Wampin Razorbacks.
I feel like it's going to be a low scoring game. These two teams are going to hang their hats on defense. There's some All-American buzz for a safety out of Arkansas, Jalen Catalon, which I do want to put out there as a guy that potentially put your eye on. Bumper Pool, who's going to set the all-time tackles record for Arkansas. So
I love that. We stand Bumper Pool on this podcast.
We do stand Bumper Pool. I mean, it's like, what's his name? The Coldest. We stand him too.
The Coldest Crawford.
The Coldest Crawford. I stand the Coldest Crawford, but I also stand Bumper Pool. And that's why I'm going with the Razorbacks. But anyway, Slumpbusters, are you going with the Razorbacks? Are you going with the Bearcats? Who is going to set their week 1? Who's going to set their entire 2022 college football season right here this weekend? Drop below in the comments, leave a like on this video, follow us on social media, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. From Juju Talk Sports, Kyle Ledbetter. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.
Womp.
Womp.